All right, welcome back to Truck Stuff. Check this out. You guys are now on our brand new 8K camera. I figured out how to set it to 8K. Let's see if this is going to be anything better. If nothing else, at least this will do 4K V30, which is fantastic because I have the SD cards for that. The GoPro doesn't seem to like to work on it. I don't know why. Maybe there's something wrong with the formatting. But either way, this should work a lot better. So comment below what you think of the film quality. Better or not. But anyway, we're up here at the shop today, shooting on the big 8K camera, because we need to cover one important thing. Get the Super Jank to crank. That's what we're going to be working on today. Let's do it. So as you guys see, we have our setup here. I have the intake manifold already off, the intake tubing. As you can clearly see, now we have everything much better exposed. And, of course, we have our ignition control module right there. And, of course, our coil right next to it. And then, of course, our infamous distributor way back down in there, which the cap is, of course, taken off. You can see a little bit of the bottom of the rotor there showing. So those are going to be some of the things that we're going to need to check out. But first, we're going to need to get up into here and test this guy. I have a feeling that perhaps this thing went wonky. It's very, very possible. And then, of course, we got to test our ignition coil, our brand new one, which is all the way over here, and make sure that that is, in fact, working the way it should. It does seem to, because, of course, it does put power all the way out to its terminal line, which goes all the way to the cap. But that may not mean necessarily anything. It may not be putting out the right kind of amperage. So let's go ahead and do some testing, get everything set up, and see what in the heck is happening with this thing. Maybe it's something very, very stupidly simple, more than likely. But this is going to be your diagnostic process to cross things off and make sure that you're not missing something very, very important. So now for the tighter shots, we may have to switch over to the GoPro. We'll see how it goes. I'm going to try to film on both cameras so we can get some split screen kind of action going on. Let's see what we can do and be a little more creative with our filming too. Let's try it out and get on it. It's the very, very first thing we have to do before we do anything, especially with testing electronics as well. We have to power it up. So let's go ahead. We'll reattach our negative terminus of our battery just loosely, just enough to give it some juice. That's all we have to do right there. Just enough. Bang. I got the battery tender attached to it because this was running just sub 12 volts. Not too bad for sitting out in the cold for a couple of weeks now. But we'll go ahead and let that charge up while we're working and then let it kind of tend the battery overnight. So hopefully by tomorrow, when I come back after Academy, well, then at least we can do a little bit more work and hopefully get this thing to crank and get it out of the shop finally. Because we're going to work on the GMT 800 just as well. So let's go ahead and get set up and get to work. So first of all, I got you guys there on the GoPro for the overhead shots. And then this camera will be right here. So then you can catch me in the talking phases of this video. Haha, look at that. Excellent. See, now this way I can also talk to the camera and instruct you guys while you guys can also see from the overhead shot and see what my hands are doing at the same time. I don't have to stop, reposition, reset up everything all at once. It's just one straight filming. Maybe it'll be more of a pain in the butt during editing, but you know what? It's pretty cool that we can do this. 8K over here and, well, 4K over there, at least 1080p if nothing else. Got to figure out what the hell's going on with that. Anyway, let's go ahead. Let's get the GoPro cranked up here. We got our ohm meter here. We got our Haynes Manual down here right by my face. So we can go ahead and check on the exact readings that is called for in the manual itself. And then that way we can actually figure out, well, are we tracking in the right direction? I'm using the other SD card, which tends to stop every so often, but let's see if it works. All right, so first off, we're going to have to go ahead and set ourselves to ohm. So we are going to be reading about 5,000 to 25,000 ohms. So for that, we're going to go ahead and set ourselves to the high setting, which is going to be 20K on our ohm meter here. All right, now we're going to have to go ahead and pull our connector over here, and then, of course, our control wire from here, which this actually goes to the distributor itself. Let's go ahead and get that guy pulled up. All right, now, see if I can do this in such a way without knocking everything over. All right, now we're going to have to get this guy pulled up here, which again is just this little tab here you have to lift up. and then just kind of gently rock her out, and that's it. Pretty straightforward. Good. Now we got ourselves set up to 20,000 ohms here, so let's go ahead and get our guy on. Good. Now, the first one that we're going to be testing here is, firstly, we should read to infinity, which is going to be from our 12-volt source going over to the grounding to the body of the actual ignition coil. That should read ohms of infinity, so it should be basically hardly any resistance at all, or no resistance at all, really. All right, let's go ahead and get that set up here. Okay, so let's see if I can reach in there first of all. Let's go ahead and get that guy grounded to the body here. Let's see here. It doesn't give us an infinity reading. Let's see. So that does give us a reading there. Am I not doing this right? Maybe this part of the body here. Let's see. Well, it says to right there, to that part. Okay, we're just getting a 1. Okay, well, we'll see again. All right, so now the next thing we're going to be testing is, find a place to rest my arm. The challenges of having a lifted truck here, you have to kind of stretch yourself over a little. So the next one we're going to be testing is going to be the position that's going to go from this part here to our actual power wire here. Now that should give us a reading of 0.1 ohm. Let's go ahead and see if I can get these to line up correctly. And it gives us what? 8,008. May not be the best reading. I wonder if we're on the wrong setting here, because it doesn't really tell you the exact setting. Let's see. Might be just on the wrong one. Let's try this way. Might have just set it to the wrong one there, because I'm seeing everything in reverse here. So that gives us a higher ohm reading there. No, sorry, this is 3, sorry. So this one should be about between 5,000 and 25,000 ohms. And right now we're set to our 20K, so then that should give us 0.763. So we're right kind of on the lower end of normal there, so that's pretty good. Now is the one where we should be getting the 0.1 ohm, and that one is going to be checking from our trigger, basically our trigger prong here that comes actually from the coil itself, going to our 12 volt. So let's go ahead and test that guy out. So make sure I'm going to put my leads in the right spot there. So that way it looks like positive goes down. Wait, do I have these on correctly? Ah, son of a bitch. I just noticed I have my cables on backwards here. Yeah. Doy. Let's go ahead and turn that off. Always remember to put your cables correctly. Duh. Got those plugged in the wrong way there. I wonder if everything was reading in reverse. All right, there we go. Now let's try it. All right, redo. Forgot to check that because it's late at night and stuff. All right, so now we're going to go our negative there and then our positive on the far pin here. So this is our firing pin from the actual the ignition module. Now that one should give us 0.1, which gives us 1. I think we might be in the wrong setting again. Let's go ahead. It says it's 20K, but I don't think that is true, is it? Yeah, that's 20K. That should be 20K right there. Maybe let's try that one. Again, this Harbor Freight stuff is maybe not the most accurate in the world. It's just the one there. Let's try there. Yeah. That's our communication wire. That one there. Make sure I get onto the pin there. And there. Should be. Okay, now so I'm not on the right pin. Is that one? Is that one? Okay, let's see if I get that one. There we go. Yeah, it kind of bounces around a little bit because I'm not getting the best connection. But the highest we're getting about 2.8. I'm bouncing around. I'm kind of sliding all over the place, so I'm kind of hitting the wrong pins here. There we go, 0.9. That's pretty damn good. All right, good. Oh, yeah. I should show you guys how I'm kind of sitting on this thing. I'm on a sideways step ladder and arching my back over in a really bad way. All right, let's test the number 1 setting again, which is again from our power wire to the actual body. And this time we have the things set up correctly here so we can actually read it. Should be to infinity and beyond. Yeah, so it's giving us the 1 reading. Okay, that's good. All right, we're good on that one. All right, that part is good. So then now, we're going to have to actually get our, I'm squeaking. Now we're actually going to have to get our actually ignition powered on, and the next thing we're going to be testing is the actual pins inside of the harness itself. That one, we're going to have to look at the 12 volt, which the 12 volt, if you look at how your cable is oriented here, I'll show you guys here on the GoPro. So if you look up here, you're going to look at your orientation based on where your clip is located here. So the number 1 is going to be, actually, if you're looking directly on it, that one is going to be towards your far left. So it's going to be this guy right here. Now, number 1 is your 12 volt supply. So that's coming from the module. Remember, this is coming from the ignition module. It's actually going to your coil itself. The center one is actually not used. This is just a dead pin for some reason. And then 3 is your coil driver from the ignition control module. That is what sends from this guy here to actually fire off. So for that, we're going to actually have to get the ignition on, charge this up, and go ahead and test it then. So let's go ahead and get that ready here, and we're going to come back and test it out. Yeah, look at that. We are full-on YouTubers now, baby. Yeah. All right, so now we have our ignition on. Everything is charged up. So now let's go ahead and test out and actually see if we can get the readings that are anticipated here in the actual book itself. So let's get the GoPro fired back on here. All right. So now we're looking for voltage, and of course we're looking for 12 volts DC. So of course we're going to be going to our setting there on DC 20 right there. I'll show you guys in the GoPro as well too. Bada bing. So that's what we're going to be looking for. We're going to be looking for 12 volts first from a 12 volt source. Let's go ahead and get everything repositioned here. I don't like having this light right in my eyes there. There we go. Now I can see a little bit better. Get our thing power back on here. Good. Now that we actually have our cables facing in the right direction, that's going to help us out tremendously here. All right. So what we got to do is get our power wire into our 12 volt supply, which is going to be this guy here. Let's go ahead and get that seated in there. Okay. Now we just have to ground it anywhere to the engine or any sort of ground. Yeah, look at that, 11.56, which is totally explainable because our battery is a little bit sub 12 volts. That's why it's charging right now. But that looks good. All right, now switch over and actually see, are we getting any power out of our trigger wire here, which is actually from the ignition control module itself. This may not be firing on now because the ignition is just powered on. We're on the on accessory mode. We're not on ignition mode, but let's see anyway. Yeah, of course, nothing. Which I anticipated that could probably be the situation here because we're not actually engaging ignition right now. That's going to be a little bit harder to do. I'm going to have to set up some way of doing that. That's going to be a little bit hard. I may have to have an extra set of hands here to do that. But at least we know that we are getting, in fact, 12 volts to here, to our ignition coil itself, which is not too surprising. That's kind of what we tested in the middle of the night in a rough and down and dirty sort of way, just by grounding essentially that control wire to the engine block itself with the multimeter in series. And we saw that we were getting the proper voltage coming out. We just don't know if we're getting the proper amperage coming out. Now, next thing we could test is actually right here on our actual ignition control module itself. That could also tell us if we're getting power to this. Maybe this is a little defunct. Who knows? So let's go ahead and test that out right now. All right, so now this is a 4-pin here. So now this, again, if you're looking from your, let me get the light on here so you guys can see what I'm doing. Oops. There we go. All right, so now again, as you guys orient yourselves to where your clip is, this is going to tell you which pins are which per the manual here. So again, with your clip up facing towards you, you're going to see number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, right? Number 1, that is going to be your ignition coil driver. That's what's fed from your ignition coil module here, and that is actually what's going to be giving you the power down the harness over here to your coil. Then you got number 2, which number 2 is going to be a ground circuit. And then, of course, you have ignition control timer from the PCM, which is number 3. Now, of course, without it actually cranking over, we're not going to be seeing any results there. We can try testing it anyway, just for gets and shiggles. But right now, without a second set of hands, which we're going to get tomorrow, to actually help us out with this, because otherwise I can't do any cranking while filming, while working in the engine bay at the same time, unless I get an electronic starter maybe. but that's still not going to fire off our ignition system. Probably not. So I'm going to have to figure out something out for that. But at least for tonight, we could do some basic testing, and I can at least teach you guys how to do some of your basic diagnostic testing based off the manual film, and based off of the rebuild film that we had already posted on the channel. Check those out, link in the description. All right, let's go ahead and try. Let's do our system here. So number 4, which is going to be the last one here, onto your far right is going to be your 12-volt source. Let's go ahead and make sure we have 12 volts feeding into that. Get that on there, like so. Okay, just ground it out. Not a whole lot coming there. Maybe it's not a good connection. Ah, there we go. 11.5, so about the same, so that's good so far. Now, I guess for gets and shiggles, let's go ahead and test number 3, which is going to be our ignition from the PCM. I'm not anticipating this is going to give us much of anything here. But let's see. No, of course not. I didn't think it really would. All right, now we could go to ground maybe. Let's go ahead and try into our ground, see if we get any results here. Nothing. Yeah, I didn't think we would without the thing actually being cranked over. Now ignition coil driver here. Of course, I don't think we're going to be getting anything because we're not actually cranking the engine. Let's see here. Nope, nothing. I didn't anticipate that we would because, again, we're not actually cranking it over. But at least we know that we do have, in fact, power. So now the next thing we could see is if our ignition control module is bad. So that's one thing that we could test right now is just continuity. So let's go ahead and switch over to continuity here, which is that symbol right there, that kind of arrow into a kind of line looking thing. And now what we're going to do is we're going to look again at our orientation here. So this clips down over here like so, with a clip like this. So we flip that over, we can look again, and we can find that we have our ground and then our 12-volt supply here. So we're going to go to pin 2, which is going to be oriented this way. So pin 1 is up top, pin 4 is down below on the bottom here. So now let's go ahead and just test our continuity and see if this thing maybe got fried. Who knows? So we're going to go to ground, which is number 2. So this is going to go up here. If I can even see the pins from here, that is. It's going to be very hard to see a damn thing in here. Don't know if I'm hitting the right pin there. Hitting a pin. Yeah, right there's number 2. Okay. Then number 4 is going to be a 12 volt. Let's see if we have any sort of continuity here happening. HV. Duh. Always make sure that your little marker there is actually oriented in the right direction. I had it up here by accident without realizing it because it's kind of dark in here. All right, now we can see our continuity. There we go. All right, now we got it. Let's go ahead and locate the ground one more time here. So that's 1, that's 2. Second pin there. Let's go down to 4. If I can trigger it off, if that is, if I can find it. Ah, oops. Hello, come back. Get some sort of result there. Yeah, if I can find the pin. Kind of doing this blind here, so this is kind of the difficult part is from this angle you're just kind of doing blind here. Let's see if I can locate the number 4 at least. Yeah, number 4 is right there. Okay, let's connect on to number 4 there. Let's see number 2. Let's see. Oh, that's something. I don't know what the heck that's telling me here, because that's continuity, it should be. Huh. Well, anything more than a 1 is a good thing, I guess. Right? Right. So we have continuity. That's good. Right? Yeah, because this is going to be flipping around the other way. Yep. All right. Because we're oriented in the correct direction here. Should be giving us some continuity. So if we have anything other than 1, it basically tells us that we have continuity. So the module, at least, is not fried. That much we know internally. That's a good thing. Okay, so now that means it's probably that really stupidly simple thing, which is going to be, well, the tab is not making contact, or maybe the inside of the wires had gotten fried. We're going to go tomorrow, we're going to do our next step, which is going to be building some new wires and then reassembling the cap, rotor, everything else to make sure that tab is making contact with the central output, basically pole. So that's what we're going to be doing next. But for that, we're going to have to do it, well, tomorrow morning, because it's like 10 o'clock at night already, and I got to do some editing and get ready for Academy tomorrow. So let's pack it in. I think we did at least a little bit of work here. And at least I got to demonstrate the new camera and also a new way of testing things. So let's pack it in. Come back tomorrow. I'll see y'all bright and squirrely. Well, in the afternoon, of course. So, of course, another thing that somebody had mentioned many, many times is make sure that you have fuel actually coming to your engine. Because, of course, if you don't have fuel, it's not going to spark off. It's got nothing to spark. So we tested that already a couple times, but to show you guys on camera that we do, in fact, have fuel, well, at least that the fuel pump kicks in anyway. Check this out. We're going to go ahead and crank her back on and take a listen. Yeah, fuel pump charges up. So, but nonetheless, that is still a very, very good thing to rule out. And that's also very, very important to rule out. So good job, guys, for thinking of that. That's important. This is not disparaging anybody. It's just, again, to show that we are ruling things out. But that is a very key thing to rule out. So great job, everyone who thought of that. Unfortunately, it seems like it is something electronic. But we're going to keep on digging. I'll see y'all tomorrow morning. Well, tomorrow afternoon.